Buenos and half a day. The public hearing is now called to order, and the time now is 8:38. Sorry, apologize for the late start. And it's Thursday, January 8th, 2026. This hearing is conducted by myself, Senator Telo, Taitague, Chairwoman of the Committee on Economic Investment, Military Buildup, Regional Relations, Technology, Regulatory Affairs, Justice, Election, and Retirement. To comply with the open government law, notices of this hearing was published on KUAM and the Government of Guam public notice portal on Tuesday, December 30th, 2025, and the second notice on Tuesday, January 6, 2026. Notice of this hearing was also disseminated to all senators and media via email and is made available on the Guam Legislature's website. I would like to recognize those who are here in person and those who are watching from home. Welcome to your Guam Legislature. I'd also like to welcome my colleagues who are joining us today, Senator Sabrina Salas-Matanani and Senator Sean Gumatauto. Thank you, Senators, for being here, and colleagues. Copies of the legislation and documents received ahead of this hearing can be accessed through the Google Drive link, which is published on the public hearing notices for this hearing and also emailed to you in advance. For the listening public, you can also access the Google Drive link on the public hearing notice published on the Government of Guam public notice portal at notices.guam.gov or the Guam Legislature's website at guamlegislature.gov. If you need assistance, please feel free to call the legislature at 671-472-3465. Before we begin, I would like to set some rules of engagement for this public hearing. When speaking, please make sure you speak directly into the microphone. Don't be shy. And for the record, please state your name, position, and who you represent. I also ask that when you testify today, if you have to leave early, please let me know in advance so that any questions that my colleagues or I have, we can ask you before you leave, okay? And I respectfully ask that you conduct yourself professionally and respect others' opinions. Those individuals who do not comply of these rules will be removed from the room and prohibited from further participation. So on the following agenda, today's agenda for discussion this morning is Bill number 245-38 COR, introduced by myself, which is an act to amend Section 3 of Public Law 37116, relative to extending the sunset provision for a temporary exemption of cannabis laboratory testing requirements for 2 years to 5 years after the date of enactment or when a lab is open. So it will sunset when the lab is open. Also, we have a roundtable discussion later on after this public hearing on cannabis. So let me go ahead and I've introduced the bill already, and I'll get started. So Bill 45-38 had a physical note. It was received by BBMR on December 23rd, 2025, noting that the bill is administrative in nature and poses no additional fiscal impact upon the funds of the Government of Guam. Also, our legal counsel preliminarily reviewed the bill was done upon introduction, and there were no recommendations for legal counsel at this time. The invitations for this public hearing were sent to DRT, CCB, DOA, Department of Agriculture, that is, GWA, GPA, Guam Behavioral Wellness, Department of Public Health and Social Service, GPD, GFD, the Guam Visitors Bureau, and Department of Land Management. So I'm just going to read a short statement about the bill. So again, buenos and hafa and thank you everyone for being here today and testifying on today's hearing for Bill 245-38. I want to begin by being very clear. Public health and consumer safety remains central to the legislature's responsibility. Laboratory testing for cannabis is an important safeguard for consumers, and this bill does not abandon that principle. The provision was enacted because Guam did not yet have a licensed testing facility that met the required accreditation standards. That exemption is not intended to eliminate laboratory testing or lower safety standards. It is a restricted time allowance to give regulated businesses a path forward while the testing infrastructure was being established. We know that there has already been an applicant for a cannabis testing laboratory, and there is clear public interest in getting a complement lab operational on Guam. Under this framework, full testing requirements are triggered as soon as a licensed testing facility becomes operational. And this bill simply extends the sunset period to allow that transition to occur without penalizing businesses for conditions beyond their control. More than a year later, we remain in a transitional period. A complement testing facility has not yet been licensed or opened on Guam, and stakeholders continue to operate under uncertainty as their regulatory system continues to take shape. This bill does not change testing standards, nor does it make the exemption permanent. It simply extends the existing sunset provision period to provide additional time for necessary infrastructure to be established. The measure before us is about balance. It recognizes the importance of consumer protection through laboratory testing while also acknowledging the practical realities of implementing a new and highly regulated industry on Guam. Extending the sunset provision provides a more realistic timeframe for compliance without compromising the legislature's responsibility to protect public health. So today is an opportunity to hear from our agencies, industry participants, and the public on this measure, and I appreciate everyone taking the time to participate and share their perspective. And at this time, I'd like to offer the floor now to Maria Lizama, Director of the Department of Revenue and Taxation, who oversees the regulatory side of the cannabis industry. At this time, you are now recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
My name is Marie Lizama, and I'm the Director of the Department of Revenue and Taxation. Good morning also to Senators Sabrina Salas-Matanani and Senator Sean Gomatautau. My testimony is short. Technically, the department takes no official position with regard to the proposed legislation. However, should it pass into law, we would have no objection. We would simply comply. Okay, that's
Thank you. Like those short and sweet ones, you did your homework, so I appreciate that. I also like to read into the record some of those who have provided testimony. We also have a Stephen Roberto. Would you like to come and read your testimony into the record? Okay, I wasn't sure if it was just oral or just turned in for written. So, Mr. Roberto, you are now recognized, sir, to read your testimony into the record. And good morning to you. Happy New Year. Okay, just we'll have someone turn on your microphone for you and again, just please speak directly into the microphone. You can move the microphone up and down to fit your position, and then your name and who you represent.
Happy New Year, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Steve Roberto. I'm writing on behalf of Guam's Real Deal LLC, a Guam-based stakeholder in the emerging but stalled cannabis industry. I want to provide written testimony in support of Bill number 245-38, which seeks to amend Section 3 of Public Law 37-116 by extending the sunset provision for the temporary exemption of cannabis laboratory testing requirements from 2 years to 5 years after the date of enactment. We strongly favor this extension and appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the roundtable discussion on the Cannabis Industry Act, particularly regarding barriers to program implementation, regulatory challenges, and interagency coordination. As a company actively navigating the licensing and operational landscape under the Cannabis Industry Act, Guam's Real Deal LLC has firsthand experience with the significant bureaucratic hurdles that have impeded the timely rollout of Guam's cannabis program. Since the Act's enactment, regulatory delays have been numerous and persistent, stemming from a combination of inexperienced agencies, complex intra-agency coordination requirements, and evolving federal considerations that complicate the local implementation. For instance, the adoption of necessary regulations for licensing, enforcement, and even basic program elements like seed-to-sell tracking with metric has progressed far slower than anticipated. These challenges have not only stalled laboratory licensing applications, but have also created uncertainty around zoning, financing, and business feasibility issues that directly impact stakeholders like us who are committed to compliant operations. Guam's Real Deal is one of the early licensees that is perhaps the closest company to finish the regulatory process, but it's still working to satisfy the legion of regulatory hurdles. As an early licensee, we've made substantial investments to get our business up and running. While we oppose changes to the legal and regulatory landscape that would apply differently to different licensees, we support any change that is applied equally to all applicants. Generally, we support any effort to improve compliance and business survival, protect local jobs and tax revenue, reduce incentives for consumers to rely on unregulated sources, and strengthen enforcement. A functional, profitable legal market is the most effective tool against the black market, which thrives when lawful operators are constrained by delays and uncertainty. Guam's cannabis industry can succeed only if regulations reflect real-world operating conditions and protect those who complied early and in good faith. Extending the testing waiver is essential to provide the breathing room needed for these bureaucratic issues to be resolved without prematurely halting industry's progress. Without this extension, businesses risk the loss of their substantial investments, which would undermine the economic investment goals of the Act and deter potential participants from contributing to Guam's economy. We urge the committee to support Bill number 245-38 as a practical measure to address these ongoing delays and foster a stable environment for responsible industry growth. Guam's Real Deal LLC remains available to provide more information or participate in further discussions. Please, senators, contact me if needed. I want to thank you for your leadership on this important matter and for convening this roundtable to address these critical barriers. Sidus Masi.
Thank you, Mr. Roberto. And Mr. Roberto, this is on Bill 245. It is a bill that we're having a public hearing, and we're going to have the roundtable, so I hope you're going to stick around for that.
I will, yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Good to know. Okay, we also received testimony from the Guam Youth Congress as well. They sent in testimony. They do not object to the Bill 245-38. I also see the Deputy Director of Public Health here, former Senator Amanda Shelton. You're here for testimony for Bill 45. You are now recognized, ma'am.
Sidious Masi, Madam Chair.
And
good morning and Hafide. I'm here to provide my testimony on behalf of our Director, Teresa Areola.
And your name for the record.
Amanda Shelton. Thank you. Buenas and Hafide, Chairperson and honorable members of the committee. The Department of Public Health and Social Services respectfully thanks you for the opportunity to present on Bill number 245-38, an act to amend Section 3 of Public Law 37-116 relative to extending the sunset provision for the temporary exemption of cannabis laboratory testing requirements for 2 years to 5 years after the date of enactment. As the regulatory agency charged with protecting public health and overseeing compliance with applicable health and safety standards, DPHS does not support nor oppose the proposed extension of the sunset provision from 2 years to 5 years after enactment. While the department is not taking a position on the bill, we understand the intent and context in which the legislation is being proposed. The existing sunset provision for the temporary laboratory testing exemption is approximately 6 months from taking effect, and the original purpose of Public Law 37-116 was to provide temporary regulatory relief to allow the cannabis industry time to develop the necessary infrastructure for compliance. However, despite the passage of the original law, there are currently no licensed cannabis facilities in operation. including licensed laboratories capable of conducting the required testing. As such, the intended regulatory relief has not yet translated into a functioning, regulated cannabis marketplace. DPHSS remains committed to its role in ensuring that any future cannabis operations on Guam prioritize public health, consumer safety, and regulatory compliance, including appropriate testing standards once facilities are operational. Any extension of the sunset provision is ultimately a policy determination for the legislature, balancing industry readiness with the long-term public health considerations. Seduus Masi, thank you again for the opportunity to provide testimony on this measure.
Thank you so much. And at this time, I'd like to open up to my colleagues if they have any questions for the panel. Senator Gumatauto?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for being with us this morning. I don't have very many questions, but maybe you can help me understand a couple of different things. At the public hearing last month regarding the qualifications of dietitian and nutritionist professionals, I was inquiring about any ongoing investigations involving illicit sellers of unapproved or misbranded drugs or food supplements. And the response from practitioners was that the supplement industry is not regulated, and that consumption of food supplements is really at the risk of consumers. So with that said, as maybe an authorized cannabis distributor, recognizing the absence of testing facilities in Guam right now, maybe Steve, you can help me answer this, and maybe if anyone here in the audience can answer this. What consumer complaints are you aware of involving your products, and how have you actively engaged consumers regarding any potential adverse risks that are associated with the use of your products?
Well, to answer that question, Senator, we haven't been able to make any products.
Is anybody else in this room can answer that? And why I'm asking, it's important for us, because as we're trying to get this off the ground, the delays that, I mean, we believe there is a value. We just, I mean, it just baffles the mind that we are still 2 years asking for an extension. And by the way, I do support the intent, and I plan to probably vote in favor of this. But, you know, as a government, and it's not an oversight hearing on public health or even rev and tax at this matter, but it's important for us as we are, you know, when the policies are set, especially on an industry that needs us the most, meaning it needs policymakers, it needs our regulatory agencies. It's clear that we need to be pushing harder to get that work done. We can't, you know, say, okay, we don't have this or we don't have that. The policy is pretty clear. We just need to execute. And it doesn't make me feel any better that knowing that there's folks out there, hundreds of folks that can benefit from its use today. I have only one other question, Madam Chair. Is during the public hearing last legislative term on the policy that this bill is attempting to amend, an individual from the CNMI testified at length about the impact of having a cannabis testing facility requirement in place. Recognizing the CNMI's experience with this evolving industry, what specific strategies have been put forward or are under active consideration by stakeholders in Guam's cannabis industry and our public or our government agencies, including regulatory improvements to protect consumer health and encourage safe and responsible production and distribution? I'm aware that they are not doing it, but have you, either former Senator Shelton or Marie, have you reached out to your colleagues in the Northern Marianas and inquired about how they're doing that business today?
Speaking for DRT, no, there have been no efforts to reach out to the CNMI with regard to how they're conducting or how they're running their industry.
Knowing that the policy is in place, Marie, again, it's not an oversight hearing, but is there anyone on your team that may or could engage the Northern Marianas?
We could possibly request that the compliance team, which pretty much oversees some of the setting up of the meetings, the CCB meetings, and so forth, as well as kind of managing the application process. I would have to speak to the team with regard to that.
John, I know you just stepped up, Jonathan.
Yeah, I skipped, he didn't write in, but I was just told that he would like to testify. So if you're done with your questions, and a lot of these questions, sir, will be done during the roundtable. We'll bring those up for sure, so that we can expend it.
No, for sure. I'm probably going to ask him again. But
yes, and I hope you do, because.
But in this case, for this measure, I felt that it would be important to add it to the record, because if we're about to do this, I think that it will bring value to it all.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
other than that, I will ask it again. But thank you again, panel, for being with us this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Senator. And is it okay if I'll just have Mr. Savaris actually provide his testimony? I'm sorry I didn't see you on the sign-up sheet, but you're very welcome. And you're recognized. Please state your name for the record and who you represent.
Hafaday, my name is Jonathan Savaris. Thank you, Senator Telo, for this bill and for the extension for the lab waiver requirements. Just to address some of the questions that Senator Gumatato has just posed, on a personal level, from what we're hearing and what we've heard previously from the government agencies, nobody was reaching out to the CNMI. When this lab bypass bill was done, it was almost a copycat from very similar to how the CNMI got their industry launched. And what it is, the safeguards that were put in place was there's actually there's supposed to be labeling that this product is not tested. Also, the safeguards that were placed is dealing with there's no extraction, no edibles. Those things that are problemsome within the industry that has been seen within the industry in the States were removed, because we know that most times from the data shows that when you deal with hydrocarbon extractions or infusions, that's when we see more problems within the ER, people getting panic attacks, negative effects. All those issues were eliminated in the initial bill, and Senator Taitague was a very great advocate when it came to standing up to make sure that those protections were in place. And I do appreciate her due diligence when when this initial bill was pushed forward. And I do support the 5-year extension, but ultimately what it is this is a cat and mouse game. I firmly believe that if the lab cannot stand up without the cultivator, and the cultivator cannot stand up, we can bypass the lab, and this is what we're doing. But at the end of the day, the cultivation issues that still loom, and we'll get into that with the roundtable, are what the holdup is. If we cannot get the plant and the cultivators up and running, then we'll never have an industry. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just one more person that I'd like to invite up who signed up to testify on Bill 245 is Chelsea Munya from Department of Agriculture. If you'd like to come up, and we'll hear your testimony before we continue on. And while you're getting ready, I'd like to recognize my colleague, Senator Shelley Calvo, who's joined us today. Good morning. Good morning. And Hafaday, Chelsea, Happy New Year. Thank you for being here. So, yeah, no worries. Take your time. And then just state your name for the record and who you represent.
Hafaday, Senator. Good morning. Thank you. And thank you to the other senators. Well, the Department of Agriculture's testimony was really brief. It was just that we're in support and in favor of Bill 245. And we also emailed our response to questions this morning for
the roundtable. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. Senator Sabrina Salas-Matanani, you are now recognized for any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the committee chair with oversight over the cannabis, I just appreciate you introducing this legislation and holding the roundtable meeting. So really, I'm just going to defer all of the questions that I have for the roundtable portion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Senator Calvo, do you have any questions or comments you'd like to make?
No questions at the moment, but I just wanted to say Sejus Masi, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for everyone who's here in the hearing room, and I'll save the questions for later. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, colleagues. And of course, those who are testifying today, Yeah, we're going to have a great conversation today, later on after this. So we're going to take a short recess, but before we go, I'd like to just state for the record that this bill, okay, Bill 245-38 has been duly heard by this committee, and any testimonies will be accepted from today's hearing, 5 business days from today. Which will be, you can mail to my office at 238 Archbishop Flores Street, Suite 407 of the DNA building in Hagåtña. You may also send your written testimony to my office via email at senatortelot@gmail.com. And thank you for your participation. We had put in the record that we were going to start the roundtable at around 9:30, but we're going to do it a little bit earlier. You know, I'm sure there's a lot to discuss. So, at this time, we're going to take a short recess and prepare for the roundtable, which will start in like 5 minutes, if that's okay. And then we'll just keep going. Okay, thank you. We stand in recess. Today again, welcome to the public hearing room. It is now called to order for this roundtable on cannabis. The time now is 9:07 a.m. on January 8, 2026. This roundtable is conducted by myself, Senator Telo, Taitague, Chairman on the Committee on Economic Investment, Military Buildup, Regional Relations, Technology, Regulatory Affairs, Justice, Election, and Retirement. And to comply with the open government law, on this roundtable, as stated earlier, was published on KUAM, on the Guam Notice Portal on Tuesday, December 30th, 2025, and the second notice on Tuesday, January 6th, 2025. Notice of this hearing was also disseminated to all the senators, the media via email, and is made available on the Guam Legislature's website. I'd also like to welcome everyone that's here today. Welcome my colleagues, Senator Shelley Cowell and Senator Sabrina Salas-Mantanani, and I believe Senator Gumatato will be joining us shortly. And colleagues, the copies of the testimonies and statements received ahead of the roundtable can be accessed through the Google Drive link, which is published on the Guam Public Hearing Notice for the hearing and also emailed to you in advance. Invitations to this public hearing roundtable was sent to the following agencies: DRT, CCB, which is the Cannabis Commission Board, Department of Agriculture, Guam Water Works, GPA, Guam Behavioral, Guam Public Health, GPD, GFD, GVB, and Department of Land Management. I'd also like to recognize those who are watching us at home today, and we would like to ask those who are participating on the round table, when it's time to introduce, you state your name for the record and what agency you're with, or if you're here in your personal capacity, or what business you represent. So at this time, I'm just going to get started with, there it is, just some opening remarks. Okay. For the purpose of this round table is to assess the current status of Guam's adult use cannabis program, examine the barriers preventing the launch of a regulated industry, and determine what actions, administrative or legislative, may be necessary to move the program forward. Although the Cannabis Industry Act has been in effect since 2019, and its rules and regulations lapsed on May 30th, 2022, no commercial leases have been approved to date. This lack of progress has raised significant concerns regarding regulatory readiness, interagency coordination, and the Cannabis Control Board's ability to fulfill its statutory mandates. As of the most recent information available on the Cannabis Control Board, the CCB, has not yet held a meeting since February 21, 2025, despite the statutory requirement to meet monthly. The Office of Public Accountability website confirms that February meeting was the last record, and the most recent meetings posted on the Department of Revenue and Taxation's website dated back to April 1st, 2024. This extended lapse in activity has contributed to uncertainty over the status of the board's decision, license reviews, and the overall direction of the program. At the time of February 2025 meeting, the CCB reported approving 16 responsible officials, yet no establishment license have been issued. Proposed applications include 5 cultivating facilities, 1 testing laboratory, and 7 retail establishments, none of which had cleared all regulatory prerequisites. The most significant holdup appears to center on the sole testing laboratory applicant, Blue Wave Inc., whose application was tabled due to unresolved issues with GWA clearances. In addition to licensing's delays, several statutory responsibilities assigned to the CCB remain unfulfilled, including the annual report on public health impacts, enforcement trends, and industry participation, as well as the adoption of separate regulations for hemp program. Compounding these issues is the ambiguity surrounding the current status of appointment board members. While the statute identifies 9 total members, including 6 agency heads or designee and 3 gubernatorial appointees, public records do not clearly identify who presently occupies the 3 appointed positions, nor whether their terms have expired. This roundtable also takes place amidst the potential federal policy shifts that could directly affect Guam's cannabis and hemp landscape. President Trump issued an executive order with the intent to reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug, which would primarily impact federal tax treatment under Internal Revenue Code Section 280E, but would still require regulatory framework governing production and distribution. As a Schedule III drug, marijuana would fall under the jurisdiction of the federal government agency in the same manner that pharmaceuticals are. Rescheduling marijuana does not decriminalize it for adult use, such as alcohol and tobacco. There are many options on what the new landscape may mean, but most of it is speculative until a new regulatory framework is established. At the same time, proposed federal changes redefine hemp, particularly tighter limits on total THC and restrictions on hemp-derived cannabinoid products. I hope I pronounced that okay. Raised important questions about Guam's current retail market, enforcement challenges, and whether the proliferation of important hemp products may be delayed investment in fully regulated cannabis industry, and this is a big problem. The Trump executive order also directs his administration to work with Congress to update the statutory definition of final hemp-derived cannabinoid products to allow Americans to benefit from access to appropriate full-spectrum CBD products while preserving Congress's intent to restrict the sale of products that impose a health safety risk. So at this time, I'd like to offer the table to everyone here to identify themselves, who they represent, and we are going to start on my right-hand side. We'll go around the table, and everybody write your pens so that you know who their names are, and you can ask them any questions that you have, so have a little thing. So that's my little trick to the trade, so it makes it sound like I remember everyone's name. But we'll go ahead and start with my right. Please recognize and who you represent. Just press the button right here on the side. Yeah, and you guys, please feel relaxed, okay? This is no pressure here, okay?
Half a day and good morning, everyone. My name is Athena Duenas. I work for the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. So I'm the supervisor for the Drug and Alcohol Treatment Program, representing my director.
Okay. And yours is on the top right here. Yeah. Okay. You might just, yeah.
Valerie Peretta, Department of
Okay,
Revenue
hold
Tax.
on one sec so we can clearly hear you. Isa, can you see what, yeah, let me see. Oh, okay, but.
Valerie Peretta, Department of Revenue Tax Compliance Branch.
From Public Health?
Compliance Branch, Department of Revenue Tax.
Okay, Revenue Tax, okay.
Mako Cepeda from Department of Revenue and Taxation.
First name again?
Mako.
Mako, can you spell that?
M-E-I-K-O. Cepeda from Department of Revenue and Taxation, Compliance Branch.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good morning. Marie Lizama, Director of Department of Revenue and Taxation, CCB Board Member.
Okay.
Good morning. Amanda Shelton, Deputy Director of the Department of Public Health and Social Services, representing Director Teresa Areola, who is a member of the CCB.
Okay, member, right, okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Yingling, and I'm not here to represent anyone, actually. I just had some extensive experience with one of my tenants who is a laboratory
Okay,
and actually
so-
a Fortune 100 company.
Okay,
and what
so
their
you're on your
experiences
personal
are.
capacity then, on your personal capacity. Okay, thank you, Jerry. Okay.
Hafide Chelsea Munya, Director, Guam Department of Agriculture.
Good morning, Senators. Robert De Los Reyes, Greenland Farms.
Stephen Roberto, Guam's Real Deal.
Jonathan Savares, I'm medical cannabis patient and medical cannabis advocate.
Hi, my name is Edward Santos. I am a patient-focused cannabis educator.
Santos is, okay.
Andrea Pelicani, formerly of Grassroots Guam, in my personal capacity.
And just for the record, Andrea Pelicani also works for my office. Yeah. You did say that, right? No.
I work for Senator Telo part-time, but I'm here in my personal capacity as the only company that I'm aware of that has cleared the regulatory process to get a cannabis license.
Okay. So I gave her time off today so she can be here. At the same time, have her work too. Okay, and of course I recognize, and Senator Gumatato, thank you for joining us. I did recognize you earlier that you were here. Okay. Now, what I'd like to start to do, and of course, please write down your questions that you have, and feel free to, just raise your hand so I can recognize you. If the questions we're asking a certain regulatory agency or an individual that you can have a question, that you might want to bring to them. But we did provide questions in advance for the agencies so that they have the answers for us and not tell us that they'll get back to us later, hopefully. So right now we're going to start with some of the questions that I have for DRT, since they oversee. So we did send it to you, so whoever wants to answer the questions, Maria, I think you have your team here to help you out here. So what is the status of the CCB board members and their terms, and why hasn't the Cannabis Control Board met since February 2025?
Okay, hello? Can you hear me?
Okay, we might have some, Dylan, can you ask?
Share.
Okay, we have
I'll
some
go ahead and
microphones that are
share.
not working, so if we can ask those guys in the back. But in the meantime, yes, please.
Okay, and I do apologize. I think in my submitted written testimony, I failed to address one thing, but I'll just go ahead and start with, with regard to the CCB board members, of course, in addition to the chairwoman, who is Vanessa Williams Cruz, the rest of the members would be the directors and or their designees of the Department of Revenue and Taxation, Department of Agriculture, Department of Public Health and Social Services, Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, the General Manager of the Guam Visitors Bureau and his designee, the Chief of the Guam Police Department and or his designee, and a member of the Guam business community, and 2 members of the general public, one of whom should possess a medical cannabis card. It is true, or what you mentioned with regard to the last 3 member slots, those unfortunately have remained vacant despite our efforts to try to get those slots filled. We have had a difficult time, and with that said, with the last meeting, the quorum, required was only 3, so we typically do have quorum in order to conduct the meetings. With regard to, let's see here, I'm sorry. As far as why we haven't had any meetings since February of 2025, the answer is simply we have not had any progress or any new items to add to the agenda and to discuss. Now, I am aware that there should be monthly meetings, and going forward, we will go ahead and just have to conduct meetings even if there are no new items to discuss or any progress to report.
Mm-hmm. So do you plan on having those meetings monthly regardless?
We will go ahead and do that. You know, we actually, you know, and right or wrong, you know, we figured that to have the meetings, you know, of course that costs there's an associated cost each time. And so we collectively, you know, did not call for a meeting, you know, given that there was no progress, no additional agenda items to discuss. And with regard, Madam Chair, to your statement with regard to the last information on our website, we will also make steps to correct you know, and update that with the latest meeting information.
Okay, so we have 3 member slots have remained vacant despite ongoing efforts to fulfill them. And what push have you made for those?
We have been in contact with the person at the governor's office who handles, you know, nominees or nominees for appointments.
And again, those all from the governor, right?
Yes.
All governor's appointments?
Correct.
All 3?
Correct,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
And, you know, unfortunately, I believe and I was not part of when the board, at its inception, but I do believe that we had one member for the general public, and unfortunately, he is in a position where he can't serve as a member of the board.
Is Attorney Williams still a member of the CCB?
She is, and I believe her term does not expire until 2027.
And how is she appointed onto the board? Through the governor?
I am sorry, I don't know. Yes, I believe so.
Raise your hand and go ahead. And just speak into it. They do work. These mics do work.
If I'm not mistaken, according to the enabling law, which is Public Law 35-5, that Attorney Vanessa Williams is an appointed member of the board via the governor. Also, the member that from the community who was the medical cannabis representative is now a sitting senator. So we've actually lost that. We lost the medical cannabis member to his seat in the legislature.
Okay, so we really need these seats filled. Regardless if there is quorum available, it's important to have all the stakeholders. There was a reason why to have that there. Anybody have any questions regarding the board? Okay, please.
Yes, Marie, if you could provide clarification. The February 2024 meeting, it didn't happen, correct? Was that supposed to be a meeting, or was that when the notice went out for the meeting?
It was February 2025, and the meeting did occur.
The meeting did occur?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Steve, go ahead, Steve.
I'm kind of confused. I've been a part of every Cannabis Control Board meeting, and I believe that the last Cannabis Control Board meeting was in October of 2024. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that it was the next topic of business was to prepare for the summit that was to occur. But because the Burr months were upon us at the time, that was the last of the discussion. I could be wrong.
Well, we do have minutes for the February 2025 meeting, but as the senator pointed out, or the chair pointed out, we just did not update our website to reflect that particular meeting.
Okay. Which you will do
but
this
we
week.
Did, yes.
Okay, this week, yes. As we're moving forward.
And I apologize, Mr. Roberto. I will get back to you as to, why you weren't aware or apprised of that, but I can't speak for that particular detail.
Steve, do you sit on the board?
To that.
Okay.
No, ma'am, I do not sit on the board.
You just participate by watching it.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
you said October 2024 was the last
So the last
one?
of my recollection, October, I have some notes. So we had a June 10th meeting. The next meeting was October 28, 2024. The topics that were going to be discussed in the following meeting after that was how we were going to move forward with the summit. I don't know anything about a February 25th meeting. And again, the minutes have not been updated on the website.
Which
Yes,
now
and we
it's been-
acknowledge
okay.
that, yes.
And now we'll get those up and going, okay?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Senator Gumtata.
Yeah, just because so I can kind of close the loop on this board thing. So, Marie, who's your designee on this board?
Well, typically, if I can't make it, then I would basically appoint the deputy director.
Yeah, why
or
I'm
so
asking
forth.
is you're busy. So I'm.
Yeah.
You may want to consider having a designee, because having regular meetings, I think it's going to be key. But I was going to also ask, because I don't know if these other departments, are the designees here at this table, or are they in this room? Whoever it is. But why I'm asking is, if we can get to the ground on who these designees are, Madam Chair, then at least in terms of having a regular meeting, it shouldn't be an issue. Going back to the general member or the general public member, it sounds like the medical cannabis card holder and the another member. I'm sure there's people in this room that will serve right now. I don't know if they have medical cannabis cards, but I mean, this is, I understand that where you're coming from, Marie, and it's a challenge not just for this board, but for a lot of boards and commissions that there's so many people that want to serve. And I'm hoping that, I know the Office of the Governor is watching, but they got to prioritize these things. A lot of work is being stuck because they don't have folks. There's plenty of people, I think Jerry wants to do it maybe, but others might want to support. And I know that there's 1, 2, 3 cabinet members in this room. Could you please, at some point, can you guys talk to them? And say, hey, we just need one public member. We're looking for a cannabis card member. These guys have a lot of access to cannabis card holders, and the line can't be that long. Okay, yeah, maybe he wants to serve, but the idea is they need help, and it would be great if they can get this done. Madam Chair, I'm not because I get where Steve's coming from, and I know there's whatever the case might be with the meetings, but by just having it, we're seeing this all over the place, and I'm just hoping that could be a priority in the next quarter if we can get this done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
John?
So if I may add, I'm sorry, but I know that there was an appointment last year of Janae Uggan as the member at large of the community. Also, because I know the Department of Public Health has a lot of other priorities, but this legislature and the previous believe the last 3 or 4 years, the medical cannabis program has been budgeted, and we actually have staffing at Department of Public Health at Hessler. And the reason why we don't hear anything about it is because the only thing that the government cares about is standing up this recreational program. At one point in time, we had 120 or 130 registered medical cannabis program card members, but because the major difference is one is the potency limits, and then 2, the taxation. Nobody wants to come up because there's nowhere for them to purchase cannabis and avail of the tax relief. So now we're down to what the last number I heard from Department 16, right? 6 or 16, less than 20 people have continued, and it's the fault of I get it. Public health has so many other things that they have to handle, but when we have people who are paid out of the medical cannabis program with the budget that this legislature provides to them, then we should be promoting patients to go work with their doctors. We should be promoting this program. And the reality is, and I would like to pose this question to this panel and the CCB, is you guys advertised that seed to sell mechanism. Where did that money come from? Because last time I checked, the medical cannabis program, the bulk of that money was designated from the medical cannabis program for the purchase seed to sell, but not once has I heard anybody talk about how this is going to benefit the program that this money came out of.
Hey, John, let me interrupt. So Janae Uggan are you saying that was an appointee too? So can, yes. Madam Chair, if it's possible, can we have your staff look at whether or not that was transmitted? And if not, maybe we just make a phone call back to Adelup asking whether or not that was the case.
Maria, can you answer that question about Janae again?
No, I'm sorry. I can't.
Okay, no worries. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank
You're
you, John,
welcome.
for that clarification.
Chelsea, I know you're on the board, right? Do you have a designee, or do you actually actively go to the meetings
I
yourself?
attend the meetings.
Yourself, okay, so you have no designee.
I believe at one point, either I or my deputy would, but it's more often than not that I attend.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I just add to Senator Gumatautel's? So typically, my designee would be, up until recently, has been the former supervisor for compliance, Craig Camacho. He is no longer, or I'm sorry, he is on leave at this time. And so, but with that said, I typically try to attend, and if I don't attend, then it's either the deputy director or Craig.
Okay.
And if I may add, though, that her designee, Craig, was doing an outstanding job running the commission or the board meetings.
Yeah. We heard he's not.
He really did lead a lot of, was very proactive and led a lot of initiative in there.
I just hope he left that institutional knowledge, because he's well versed to your next designee, Maria. So. Amanda, you have a question?
Oh, I was going to mention our designee to the board, if the director has not been available, is our, we have a special projects coordinator who's Lauren Salcairo, and he also is working on the medicinal cannabis program. And so just a little bit of an update there as well. I know Steve mentioned that we, in previous meetings, we're talking about planning the summit. So the Department of Public Health and Social Services has taken the lead to plan that, and we are sending out notices this week that the summit will take place. This is required by the enabling legislation that the CCB must conduct an annual summit. So it will take place on January 29th at the Sinahanya Community Arts Theater from 8:30 in the morning to, I believe, 4 p.m. But we will send out the notice to everyone, our stakeholders and our CCB partners, and to all of you senators as well.
How about the public? How are you going to disseminate this information to the public?
We'll be sending out a press release.
Okay, good. Okay, so hopefully it'll get on, people to see it in the paper.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, if there's no more questions regarding the board, I'm pretty sure there might be some later on, so feel free to just ask. The next question we had proffered was the CCB has no authority over personal use of cannabis. However, what is the CCB's role in the enforcement of illegal cannabis sales?
Okay, I'll go ahead and take that. We have no authority over the enforcement of the illegal cannabis sales. However, I will say that what will happen is compliance will issue a fine for anyone caught, not having a business license and conducting such sales. Additionally, an investigation may ensue with regard to any non-reported sales, of course, because of related taxes, non-payment of taxes. So that is the extent of what we will be able to do.
Okay. Any questions, anyone? Comments? Okay. The next question is, there are businesses on Guam importing hemp products and selling it in various forms, including Delta 8 THC. How would the proposed federal redefinition of hemp, particularly the total THC standards and restrictions on hemp-derived cannabinoid, am I pronouncing that right? Somebody help me. Cannabinoid?
I can say it both ways.
I can say it both ways, cannabinoid products, impact Guam's current retail market? And in your view, would these changes help stabilize or further complicate the implementation of the regulated cannabis industry on island? It's for DRT.
Sorry, ma'am, if it's okay, I will defer that response or the question to Department of Ag, because I think there was some confusion over the definition, or I believe, with regard to hemp. Chelsea.
Chelsea, you want me to read that question?
No, I think I recall it, but it's different hemp that we're talking about. So Department of Agriculture would oversee the cultivation of hemp, not manufactured hemp products. Right now, the manufactured hemp products that we're talking about, like with the Delta 8 and that, is federally managed or regulated and down-regulated now, but then also at the state level. So products that are imported are already processed and manufactured products that then would defer to customs and quarantine for importation. But they're basically, at that level, products that are approved federally and by the state, or manufactured under state regulations, and then imported to Guam. There's nobody manufacturing that here, but the Department of Agriculture has authority over hemp that's cultivated, like the hemp plant. And we have an approved state plan for hemp growth or hemp cultivation. We recently, in I think October, held a community meeting to publicly hear the hemp regulations that we're now in the process of the next step before we transmit it to the legislature for review and approval.
So I have a hearing that there, through the Farmers Act, right, the ability to send product of hemp product to Guam has been happening on Guam, right? And that in October of this year, they're going to be making changes to allow any of that product coming in. So my question is, if that's the case, then we are going to solely rely on local grown hemp in order to get it to Guam, because from what I gather, there's going to be some kind of concern. I'm going to turn it over to Andrea with regards to this particular situation that may happen in October of this year. So, Andrea.
To clarify, I guess then I did have a question. If Department of Agriculture views their authority as only locally grown hemp, then under whose authority is the hemp business being regulated at the moment? It's in ABC stores, it's in their 6 gateway stores. I don't know what they're selling. Who's regulating that? Whose authority is that under? That's just a question that I have. If we're not sure at this table, that's a little concerning, I think, to me. With regard to the restrictions for hemp and how it's been redefined, either October or November, the definition of hemp is changing, which we all understand is a percentage of THC, Delta 9, right? That's how hemp is defined. And so with the change, it's going to recognize that there are other compounds which are currently now flooding the market everywhere. And that's going to be restricted by total serving, a total package size, I believe. And so when you extract, so much Delta 8 or any whatever from something that's defined as hemp, it's kind of complicated. Something that's defined as hemp, which is, as a plant, it only contains a certain percentage of THC, and then you extract that and make it a concentrate. That's kind of how they're loopholing it. Yep. And so when you cap the potency per package, that's, I guess, how they're planning to clamp down on it. If that clarifies anything for anybody, that's to my best understanding.
I believe Customs and Quarantine regulates the importation of hemp products right now.
But who regulates the market? Who's regulating, who's checking the stores, who's, like, what are they selling? I mean, if the product is in, who are they selling it to? Is it going to minors? Like, I mean, all that regulatory framework is confusing to me.
You're right, Andrea. There is currently no local regulation with regard to hemp. As Director Munya indicated, you know, if the things that are coming in right now, they're federally legal, and so you know, it likely would be customs area to either allow that or to obtain documentation to ensure that they are you know, in compliance with the federal regulations. With regard to the sales, it goes back to, again, for us, for compliance, we indicate, if I'm not mistaken, certain products, because they're smoked, you know, of course, those type of products, they would need a tobacco license at our end. On the other side, though, I mean, they're reported as retail sales, and so our job basically would be to ensure that the sellers would have the valid business license, you know, and so forth. And I think that that's pretty much it. But you're right. I mean, there is no local regulation in place at this time.
I think the initial question is who has oversight or jurisdiction on the hemp products. And then it created a whole slew of different responses. So I just want to give clarification on the initial question, which was, I can only speak for Gateway. And when I talk about Gateway, my wife is an actual partner in the business. I'm a consultant for Gateway. Gateway sells federally compliant hemp products. Federally compliant hemp products are not on the Controlled Substances Act. So they are non-regulated agricultural product. The product has to be lab tested by an approved laboratory. Right now, the DEA has a hold on all DEA-approved laboratories simply because there's not enough laboratories to uphold the standard of the DEA. So you are allowed a third-party tested laboratory COA. It's called a certificate of analysis. If your product has a certificate of analysis and a proper chain of custody, it is allowed to be shipped by federal law and to be sold. There was a question about whether or not these products are being sold to minors. So I hope that answers what the products are. Those products aren't being sold to minors because there's a robust age gating system at Gateway stores. I can't speak to mom and pop stores that sell this stuff. I can't speak to gas stations or other operators, but a store like Gateway, we want to be the poster boys of compliance. We don't want to screw this up for the people that come to us for these products that are in need, because the lack of the other mechanisms, there is no medical program. There is no recreational program. There is only federally compliant hemp that keeps people, gives the help that they need and keeps people out of jail. I think we can all agree on that on this table. So those are the two questions that I think people need to understand. There's a difference. Hemp is very different from cannabis in a sense, the regulatory state, but it does fill the gap, fill the need in lieu of the absence of these programs.
Thank you, Senator. Let me give a little bit of background here first, because I'm not involved in the industry per se, and I don't imbibe myself, and I don't put anybody down who does. My son's quite an avid user in California. But anyway, the point is that shortly after COVID, I still have a tenant that does laboratory testing. It's outside of the cannabis industry for what they do on Guam, but they do have a subsidiary that does cannabis testing for Canada, for the government of Canada. And so what I did was I approached them to see, number one, if I could get them to develop a new business stream for their company here, and maybe expand their employee base, and also to maybe generate some income for Guam, because this thing's just been languishing and nothing's been happening without a certifiable study of what the cannabis contains. And I'm not a scientist, I didn't get into this, but they are. They're out of Europe, they're very familiar with cannabis. Several of the countries in Europe, they also do the testing. And so they looked into it here, and they couldn't get some really basic information, like who's going to be doing the approvals and certification for a grower, and what was the development of the chain of custody from the grower to the testing lab, and then back out to either a manufacturer or a distributor. And we went through all of those questions, and actually I think we finally gave up right around maybe mid-2024 because we couldn't find the answers. We even wanted to try to find out what size the market would be, and we get absolutely no information on that. And while they have equipment that a lot of it could cover a lot of the testing, the final part, they would have to invest another $1.4 million on one more piece of equipment in order to complete the testing as required under Guam law. And since they can't tell how many users or how many, how to go about making an internal rate of return for that piece of equipment, that they finally bowed out. And it's a shame. I mean, they really made a big effort, but a lot of the questions remain not centralized. We had many meetings with the Department of Rev and Tax, and they gave us as much information that they could give us. But unfortunately, there's gaps and holes that don't seem to fall under the purview of Rev and Tax. And the company's quite conservative. They got, I think, in this region alone, 400,000 employees. So they're not going to risk doing anything that is going to looked at askew by their board of directors. But anyway, that's just a really quick background on that.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on. If there's any other questions regarding hemp, go ahead.
So going back to the 2018 Farm Bill, it was left in the hands of the state and territories. The enabling law that legalized recreational cannabis on Guam, adult use cannabis on Guam, there was a statute in that law that gave the directive to the Cannabis Control Board to create rules and regulations for hemp specifically. And this was referring back to the 2018 Farm Bill because those regulatory requirements were left in the hands of the states and territories. This was another oversight, and I'm not trying to hamper on the CCB, but the reality is it was there. That we could have created regulations to keep it out of mom and pop stores. There are responsible places like Gateway and other entities who are standalone entities who are deal with hemp because it helps to keep that controls. But now we're seeing it in mom and pop stores, and that's concerning. But those regulations should have came out of the CCB, and it could be pushed out of the CCB because it is in their enabling statute.
Maria, you want to comment on that? That it is in there, based on Mr. Savara's comments regarding it gives you the authority to oversee this.
And we will take that back. I will take that back to the board as a whole. Okay. Because, up till this time, we've really just concentrated on the rules and regulations that were passed into law.
Okay, thank you.
Senator?
Anyone else? Yes, Steve?
I will add to this that when Gateway first opened, and by the way, Inspector Craig, Deputy Director Craig, and his team of inspectors are just tip-top, the best, the easiest to work with, so helpful. We brought them. They had a slew of questions about hemp, and we invited your team to the facility to take a look and understand what the differences were. And he agreed that we were in full compliance of what was going on. Stores like Gateway pay their taxes. They provide safe access to a different bunch of communities that require these products. I'm a local. My wife's a local. We're not going anywhere. If you have a complaint, we have to be there to address it. We put our names on it, and we stand on our business and our SOP. And with the help of compliance branch, we've worked together to kind of differentiate that. And I think there's just a lot of misinformation because there's a lot of confusion as to what hemp and cannabis is, and then the ever-changing landscape with the laws federally and locally. So if anything, Gateway provides a lot of education and re-education. And it's kind of like training wheels as to what the potential of what we might be doing if we get this thing off and going. Okay. So I just wanted to make that statement so that there's no confusion as to what a store like Gateway or some of the other operators are. I do agree with the business practice of some of the gas stations and mom and pops. I can't speak to that, but we've heard things. So there is a distinct difference. And if there's questions about regulation, we do enough work with the U.S. Postal Service, Guam Customs and Quarantine, Department of Revenue and Taxation, Department of Public Health. We had to apply for a special license to sell hemp gummies. I think we're the only hemp gummy business license for Department of Public Health and Social Services. So we are in full compliance.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And I do understand the how public health, rev and tax can be overwhelmed, especially with the the regulatory side, the inspection side. And in fact, it was brought up too regarding vaping. Having it all out of gas stations and mom and pop stores because there are more restrictions, in a store that just sells these products. And, with cameras and all the things that are required, it makes it easier too for rev and tax because they just go to these individual stores than have it. So that might be something the CCB may look or request because this roundtable can generate maybe some legislation that would make it, safer and not easier, but being able to monitor these products on Guam. So that might be a consideration to take them out of those certain areas, gas stations, stores like that, and keep them in the other stores. Actually, I made that recommendation on the vape side, so we probably might be able to do it on the products.
So noted, Madam Chair.
Okay.
And if I may, I just would like to comment, the team, when we have these discussions, and when they go off to the, whether it's a CANRA conference or, the cannabis regulators conferences and so forth, one thing stands out is that in other jurisdictions, there is a standalone department, if you will, specifically for cannabis, tobacco, alcohol, and so forth. And while we eventually would love to be able to have something similar at the Department of Revenue and Taxation, the fact of the matter is we're still just kind of trying to catch up and manage, the day-to-day responsibilities that we have. But we certainly believe that if you had a dedicated standalone division, if you will, or department, I think that would be of tremendous help.
Thank you. Nothing more than, my next question is the implementation on the program is how many applicants are there and what is the status of those applicants?
Okay. So since the launch of the cannabis industry, there have been 15 applicants. And, mind you, there are 6 steps, right, to becoming fully licensed, if you will. But with that said, there are currently 4 in the cannabis establishment licensing phase, and only 2 are actively working on their clearances, both of which are cultivators. So it's been slow. There's no one near at all to completion.
Andrea.
I'd like to note for the record that the excise tax on cannabis, 20% of that goes to DRT, and I think the intent was to assist the department with standing up a department to, or division to regulate this industry. I think everybody acknowledges that.
Yes.
And that tax was there. So 0%, 20% of zero is 0. And so without any businesses, there's no funding. That's
Right.
where the money was supposed to come from. I just wanted to put that on the record.
You're right, because 15% on the dollar value of the cannabis sold or transferred from a cultivation facility to a retail cannabis store or cannabis product facility is when that excise application will take effect.
So my other question is, has any of the applicants reported barriers to you in the process? And if so, what has been done to remove those barriers, especially at the partner agencies like Department of Land Management on zoning, GWA, EPA, and so forth?
If it's okay with you, I'll have one of the inspectors go ahead and respond to that, because they have been the ones who have fielded concerns or maybe perhaps comments with regard to barriers. Use this one.
So with the current applicants that are applying for the CAL application cannabis establishment license, they do stress their frustration with, of course, the clearances of the different agencies, how they don't have their rules and regs up to date and stuff like that. We do have one cultivator that is currently active getting his clearance if he wants to speak on behalf of his frustration, so it can be a little bit more easier for you guys to understand his frustration coming from the person himself. Would you like to, Mr. C. Roberto?
I just want to make it clear with you, Inspector, are we the furthest along in the process, or is there another applicant that is further along than Guam's Real Deal? I'd like to make that very clear here.
Yes, you're the furthest. You and another person.
So this is what we've been going through, Senators, is the fact that it has taken so long. If I take any of the if I take the Kel packet up to one stop, you're going to have a look of confusion amongst the line workers, because it's been so long since they're training for that act to handle that particular piece of paper.
Can you go back to the CAL pack?
The CAL is the Cannabis Establishment License.
Okay.
It's one of the necessary functions to continue this business.
Okay.
I think after the CAL.
What is the CAL pack?
So the CAL requires me to get clearances from all line agencies under the Act to make sure that I'm in full compliance of anything that they oversee. So we've gone through Department of Public Health, Land Management, Guam Fire Department, Guam EPA, Guam Power Authority, and Guam Water Works. And I think the frustrations for myself are just, like I said, when you go to engage, the amount of time that has passed, the training for the employees, they don't know how to handle that particular piece of paper. So you'll get the response of, what is this? Oh, this is the cannabis, this is the marijuana. Man, I forgot what to do about this. Pari, what do we do with this, And they're trying. They really want to help. They really, really do. So we've gone through the process. The last clearance I need is from Guam Power Authority. We had to, upon their request, kind of restructure some of our load requirements for power, because it is very power intensive in terms of power consumption. So we've actually finished that and are waiting for GPA Engineering to inspect the work. And then that will be my final clearance to pass, hopefully. It's been difficult, but not impossible. I think the difficulties lie in the fact that there's been a lot of slow walking for whatever reason. And
How long, Steve, did it take you to do these clearances? Like you said, you have one more to go, GPA. How long did it take you?
Madam Chair, I have renewed my responsible official credentials and my cannabis administration license 3 times. That's how long it's taken.
Three times?
Yes, ma'am. Is
Timeline?
it 4 or 3?
I believe it's 3, sir.
3.
So when you're saying 3, timeline is what?
3 years since
Three times, so every year you
Yes, ma'am.
submit it. For 3 years?
I renew my license.
Oh
I
my
renew my
gosh.
responsible official credentials. This costs money. I
Oh
like
my
to pay
gosh.
by cash because the card, they want to take a little percentage. So,
Andrea?
you know.
Andrea?
I want to add a little context to this, and I will try to make this as concise as possible. Our company was Grassroots Guam. We were the first medical cannabis license on Guam. We urged the CCB to take a different approach in envisioning the licensing process. He's talking about the cost of his license, but the cost of 3 years of not making any revenue, you will lose the shirt off your back. And if that's what we are asking our local businesses to do, it goes against everything I heard the CCB champion, which was to help local businesses. We urged 4 times, 5 times that we re-envision the licensing process. So the biggest difficulty, again, we're talking, I know Senator talked about the tax. That is the biggest regulatory hurdle. Anybody talking about the license fees or whatever, we're off the mark there. You need to have enough funding to make it pass, losing pennies off the dollar every single day you're operating because of this tax burden. That is the main challenge in cannabis. Will it be removed with Schedule 3? We hope so, but we don't know how long that's going to take. So we asked the CCB to re-envision the licensing process to allow local businesses to bootstrap. That process came to fruition under the medical program. In other words, all you have to present are your plans. You present your safety plan, you present your water plan, your sewage plan, your security plan, your inventory controls plan, your recalls plan. Everything's on paper. You put everything on paper, you allow local companies to learn their business. They go apply for a license, you get a license. You take that license because you can't go to a bank and get funding. You take that license out to any cannabis finance company, you are a lower risk investment, meaning you don't have to give away your company to get $2, $3, $4 million to build your business. Why isn't Grassroots Guam open? I'll give you the honest answer. We had a land deal, we had funding in escrow. Department of Public Health and Social Services could not approve our license within the time mandated by law. Because of that, everything rolled and spiraled downhill. We lost our land, we lost our funding, and we were never able to get that back. That is the burden that these businesses are being put through while we sit here and talk about why haven't the board met or whatever. I'm just bringing some real, these are the challenges that these companies are going through. I don't know them. I just know what I went through, and I lost the shirt off my back. So this government can either support these businesses and remove these challenges and listen to the people who have been through it, who know where the challenges are, who knows the challenges from banking to getting financing to operating to preventing diversion and all these things. There are a lot of experts out there. We just need to listen to them. It's not that hard. We've made a lot of, I was looking through the Cannabis Control Board rules packet, and I was going through each of the testimonies. Nothing. I was floored. And then those rules came to the legislature. No bill. no discussion, a mandated obligatory public hearing where everybody was so excited to come and testify and give their 2 cents, hoping the senators and the legislature would listen to their concerns to stand up this industry. No bill, no discussion, rules lapsed into law. And then here we are 3 years later going, oh, why don't we have any cannabis businesses? Everything was testified to you already. Everything's on record. The problems were told to the board, to the legislature. If we can just identify why didn't we listen and make those fixes, I'm pretty sure there will be a cannabis open. Hopefully, good luck to Steve since he's the furthest along, but we lost everything. And I'm sure there are other companies out there who tried, lost everything. We just don't have enough to put $1, $2, $3 million, and wait and hope that the government approves their map 1 year later, or all these things. It's really challenging. So I just wanted to put that on the record. I really feel the frustration on the table, and I just wanted to speak out and tell my story. So I hope that gives some clarity to the burdens.
John?
So, and I commend Grassroots Guam. When I got involved in this almost 10 years ago, Dre, remember that? We've been at this table with Andrea Pelicani, Steve Roberto was there, Melker Manabusan, the late King Conception, so many people. And the sad part is, Andrea was the first. Andrea, right from the inception. And I watched it collapse. I was calling. And at the time, it was Director Gillum. And she tried to work, hitting the extension deadlines. And all public health could do was just push it to the side because it wasn't a priority. And it made it very clear to me that as a patient, that we're not priorities. And I watched it again happen a couple years later with Greenland Farms. Greenland Farms got through the whole regulatory. I'll show the senators. I have the picture with Greenland Farms' owner and their responsible official holding their certificate to proceed. But guess what? They were tapped out. They were tapped out because it was so much money that they had to wait. It took them almost 3 years. 3 years. But not a single person in the government of Guam cared. And we're here again, almost 10 years later, same table. No tax revenue. We've accepted fees from people like Steve Roberto, Andrea Pelicani, Greenland Farms, and all the responsible officials who've come in and paid their dues. And yet, we cannot move this industry forward. And I'll tell you why. We put a burdensome regulation in place. The CCB, Andrea's right. We had so many people come in to testify at the CCB. I watched one of the stakeholders get told that, hey, we got to hurry this through. And his testimony during a board meeting, he got pushed aside. Even though people were yielding because people wanted him to speak out for us. And they pushed the meeting up. They pushed it because somebody had a personal engagement. Time of Malau. No shame. You have an industry experts trying to help you guys. When we came in and there was a public hearing for the rules and regulations that were created, there was, 40, 50 people here come to testify. We had like 20 people testify, all saying the same things. We had Ernie Wistick coming in saying, hey, this agriculture regulations that you guys are putting in place is not consistent. These regulatory hurdles that are put in place is making it so difficult and so costly that the businesses are going to struggle to survive. And I'm so glad that Mr. Roberto has something to help him to get through this. And him and his wife have a business and they're contributing to taxes, but they want to contribute more. It's commendable because he's trying to just stay alive so he can get this industry up. When other people over the years, the board, it's nice, you guys, it's nice for the government, it's nice for the people on the board because it's not your money. It's not your money that's being burned. It's their investors, it's their hard-earned money, it's their life savings. It's nice when it's not your money. That we're gonna say it's okay to burn some other people's money because we want to sit on our hands and we don't want to listen. I'm sorry to be upset. But I had to learn how to grow my own medicine. I had to learn how to extract because nobody Nobody stood up for the patients. When we were asking, when we were coming here trying to help the government stand up and understand how this plan is navigated and to work with you guys, we were told, we don't hear you. We don't hear you. And it was clear as day when we came in and I saw somebody, a pioneer of this industry, I believe a pioneer of this industry, get told, hey, we got other things to do. We got personal engagements. And they cut his testimony off at a CCB hearing. And it wasn't any of the CCB members here, I'll make that very clear. But I watched that happen. And it was disheartening, and I'll tell you what it did to a lot of people in this cannabis industry who were trying to get into this industry. It made them lose so much trust and confidence in the board. It made them lose so much trust and confidence in the government. But I'll tell you, right now at this point in time, this legislature is bringing everybody together with stakeholders at the table. It's making it very clear that regardless of what's happening, we're going to move forward because we need the economic turn needs to happen. We have no industry. Our tourism industry's in the dumps. We don't have the revenues, but yet we're going to overregulate. We've been overregulating the start of this industry, and I'm glad there's senators who are finally stepping up to do something about it.
Thank you, John. And yes, there was probably one of the biggest mistakes that were made is allowing those rules and regs to go through without placing it on the session floor. To many of us, we were waiting for it to be placed on the session floor so that we can debate it and add any amendments. And unfortunately, it was never reported out by the oversight chair at the time. So we're here today, we're trying to find solutions. We're trying to fix areas that bring hurdles, stop the bleeding of people who want to, open a business to contribute into our economy, provide jobs for those who need it. And, that's what we're here today. So let's find some solutions now. We know that the problem is there. So it's time for solutions. I don't know, Chelsea, if you wanted to chime in on any of the experiences that you had, the heartaches or anything like that you know of, I'd like to hear them.
It's really illuminating to hear everyone else's experience because at our agency, we haven't, what I'm understanding now though, is that everyone or these companies have been trying to clear the regulatory hurdles that they're passing, so they haven't even gotten to us yet. We're the last step. And our process is pretty simple for the bona fide certificate.
Okay, so I'm just going to move on if there's not any more questions regarding that, because I want to get into the question of, are the enforcement rules for DRT and the CCB and partner agencies clearly defined under the Cannabis Control Act of 2019 and the subsequent rules and regulations? I did have your answer here was yes. Okay, so I'm going to just move on to the next one. How is BPT applied across the distribution channel? How is the excess tax being levied and enforced at the wholesale level?
So no one is at that part of the process where the taxation would occur. What we've done on our side is we're preparing for that time. In other words, we've redone or we've implemented or drafted a new form for filing online with regard to cannabis and so forth, to include codes within that. We also ensure that any time payment is taken, it is clearly designated as cannabis related, and so forth. But we're just not at that stage where we'd be collecting taxes.
And you explained that BPT will be applied at the retail level, the excess tax of 15% on the dollar value of cannabis sold or transferred from cannabis cultivation facilities to a retail cannabis store and cannabis product facility.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Okay, the other question I had regarding Metric. So with the status of your agreement with Metric, the company selected for the seed to sale program. Can you elaborate on that? And I know that public health might be involved with that on that contract.
Yes,
please
so
fill the-
we are part of that program, and to my understanding, the renewal is actually set for September of this year. And so it's us, it's public health, and I believe it's ag. And so the way it's set up is that we share in the cost of the program. But that's about as much as I can speak on that. We do have regular meetings with Metric, at least our staff does, and other than that, I will defer to public health.
You can use this one if this is, does it reach? No, it does, sorry. Share.
Okay,
You're
thank
okay
you.
to share? Okay.
Yes, regarding metrics, so as Marie said, we share in the cost of the contract for metric, and we recently met with them as well to go through the seed to sell system, which I think several of the DRT employees have done too. And they will be a part of our summit on January 29th to give an overview and answer any questions for stakeholders.
Can you explain what metric is? How did you get the contract? Why did you, from the very beginning of its inception of metric, why was it put in place?
So simply put, it's considered a seed to sale program. So in other words, it would be from the time, and pardon me
what
for those
funding?
that are...
Yeah, so my question is, who funded this company to come in to assist you?
I believe the initial funding was from public health.
Okay, public health, and...
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure, John.
So, going back on the history of metric, right? The seed to sell mechanism is supposed to track from the inception of the plant to the cell. Let me get in. So this was procured initially under the medical cannabis program because there was $350,000 appropriation to the medical program, and that $350,000 was to employ people so we can work for the medical cannabis patients and get more patients involved and work with the doctors and everything, as well as the procurement of the seed to sell mechanism. But the only person that's ever advertised that we got the seed to sell was the CCB. Nothing in there mentioned the medical cannabis program, which a bulk of that money came from. So that's where the funding mechanism came from. I've met with, before the procurement of any of it, I believe, Andrea, were you in that meeting when we had Metric come in and they presented to the MCB or the Medical Cannabis Commission? So we had Metric come in and we present to the Medical Cannabis Commission about how the program works. Every plant's supposed to be tagged, and that tagging system is going to follow them from that plant from seed to sell. This is how we control the taxation and ensure that the government has regulatory oversight, because the access points will all be allowed from different entities, whether it be agriculture monitoring the plant, whether it be revenue tax monitoring the taxation, whether it be Department of Public Health monitoring if it's a patient or whatever, whatnot, whether it be a recreational consumer or medical cannabis medical patient. So those implementations are all included within the metric system. That procurement has already been done. We've been paying for it for 3 years now, if I'm not mistaken, 3 or 4 years.
We've been paying for it for several years, and the way it came about is that there are two big national providers of this system, seed to sell system. So Metric is one of those big providers that we were able to establish a contract with for this seed to sell system, as John said, that it follows the plant from a certain size to its cell all the way, the same tags that are able to be scanned, and in case there is a need of a recall, if something is tested or something goes bad, unfortunately, or if there's maybe a tax question attached to that certain batch, then we as public health can recall that batch, or revenue tax can go out and maybe fine a company for that certain batch. So this is a company that does this worldwide, and they will be our provider if we decide to renew the contract later in the year.
What is the cost for the contract yearly?
I don't have that on me, but I will get that information for you, ma'am.
Do you still have a balance left over from the $300,000 that was appropriated?
I will have to get that for you as well. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Okay. Yeah, we like to see how far that is along. I mean, that's important, especially on the agriculture side, right? You know, just to be able to monitor the growth of what's going on in metric.
Just for clarification, so we've had this metric system for how many years?
I believe 2 years.
3 years. And are we using it?
So not currently, because there's no business producing, and so, you know, Metric is ready to go. They're standing by. They've been answering our questions, working with us on a week. We talk to them on a weekly basis through, you know, the team, and they're ready to go. They know that our industry is ready to go, and they're ready to start when we are.
So Metric, there is something that Metric does, and it's in conjunction with the medical cannabis staff. In the back of my medical cannabis patient card, as well as my primary caregiver card, I have a barcode, and this barcode is attached to Metric. So when we talked about standing up adult use as well as medical use together, it was to help us with the taxation separation. And this is why this conversation began with taxation. This is why we've constantly talked about moving the taxation away from the cultivator to the end consumer, because it's easier to separate the taxation. And then Andrea was talking about IRS 280E. And if you know anything about IRS 280E, you cannot write off your cost of goods for the production of any Schedule I controlled substance. And that's why the tax implications have been such an issue. And this is something that's been brought up to DRT, it's been brought up to the board, it was brought up to the legislature, and we've been asking that this tax burden be removed from the cultivator, because the highest cost that they're gonna have is to their power, and they cannot even write off their power. But back to yes, there is something that Metric is doing, that we're using Metric for, and it's just to put a little nice barcode on the back of our cards, so whenever we get a dispensary open, we can hopefully avail of a tax relief.
Yes, and then they also provide information to us about what companies are available to Guam and whoever will become a producer that works with their software to be able to use the system easily. So they provide that kind of database to us already, in addition to the barcodes. And Senator Sabrina, with regards to why we haven't, you know, used Metric to the fullest yet, is because we at Public Health have not received any application for medicinal licensure since 2023. So we're in 2026, and I know that a big part of it, I mean, of course, it's the bureaucracy and the difficulty, but also since the passage of the Recreational Adult Use Cannabis Act, that, you know, we've seen that we have no applicants on our side, and so we are, you know, making the assumption that maybe those folks are going out into the bigger industry for recreational or not coming our way.
If I had the funding, I would still apply for medical. It's federally protected. Adult use cannabis is not federally protected. A medical cannabis will always be protected. So for every potential cannabis cultivator out there, if you're looking at protection for your business, for your liability, for your family, for the unknown of what tomorrow may bring, who knows what Schedule 3 will bring? Does anybody at this table know if Schedule 3 doesn't mean the FDA come in shutting down every cannabis business on Guam? I don't know that. I don't know. I don't know if it brings it into a stricter regulatory framework or if it opens it up. I don't know. And I don't know that anybody does know. But
Madam Chair, I don't mean to interrupt, but can I go back to Amanda? So we paid for the...
Yeah, but let her finish, please.
Oh,
Senator,
no, I was
please.
just going to ask a question on the...
After Andrea. Go ahead, Andrea, finish, please.
I just wanted to finish, with Metric. Metric was a company that we were interested in working with also, so I'm really happy to see that they're a good, reputable company. How Metric makes their money is they make it easier for governments to adopt. It's kind of like the Microsoft model, if you will. They make it easier for governments to adopt their platform, and the cost burden falls on the cannabis business. So you pay for all the RFID tags, and that's how they make their money. So the cost to contract the system is the smallest cost. Yeah.
So we're basically paying for a software, and then the businesses also pay for access to that when they buy the tags for all of their products.
Senator Gumtalto.
Yes, and so that was going to be my next question. So if we're already paid for it and we haven't used it, who's been paying for either the upgrades to the system to to maintain it? Is that a public health? I mean,
it's part of the contract right now.
Okay, so at some point that it's
Yes,
going to
later
run
in
out
the
of
year,
money, isn't it?
the contract needs to be renewed.
Yeah, because I that's my thing is if we're not implementing and it's just sitting there, it's.
So I will get back to you on what is left in the account if we're able to fully pay for a renewal of the contract or what is possible on our end with our financials. I don't know off the top of my head, but I will get back to you.
Yeah, I mean, because I think it's an asset that's been purchased by this government to implement a program. And I mean, we can go on and on all day about what's taking us so damn long, but the idea is we paid for it and then we can't even, I mean, when we got the utilization is super tiny.
Yes, and I just want to add that until such time that it is fully used, in the meantime, as Andrea mentioned, Metric is great. They have actually reached out to the staff to ensure that they go through demonstrations, tutorials, and so forth, so that they are well versed with the way the system works, and so that when we are ready to receive that, we're good. I mean, so it's not ideal. It's not ideal, but it's not that there's nothing happening on their side and our side.
No, I'm just saying that we pay a lot of money for a system.
Understand.
And if there's only 3 people using it, no offense to the whole industry, but it's like we're spending a lot of money for what? So maybe we can get it going, and then it can we need the value for us for our own money, isn't it? I hope these people on this table would agree.
I do know it's not a crazy amount of money. I mean, I don't want us sitting here thinking
but
No.
Chelsea, it's every dollar that's spent.
Absolutely, but all the staff are still getting trained, and there was
they're still getting paid
there was
too,
a
by the way.
lead-in time where they're also working on integrating it into the new government of Guam system to ensure that it works across DRT, Public Health, and Department of Agriculture. So stuff was happening. I mean, it's not like they just came, said, here's our software, we trained you, and bye. Right. Let's, keep paying us. It's been incremental, and there's an entire process through it.
And because my question was, because these programs, there's updates, there's other things as they're modernizing. If the program started 3 years ago, must have been updates over the last 3 years. That's what I was asking. It's just from experience, knowing that once we buy a system, that as long as we're updating it and cost-wise, it's going to.
The first step wasn't to integrate it right into GovGuam because we knew that the change was coming with the GFMIS system. So the first steps were to brief the staff on how to use it or just the operations of the software, how it worked, and then start training everybody. And then I think for the last 2 years, they've been working on integrating it into the government of Guam system.
Yeah, and one of the biggest.
I have the contract cost, Senator. Okay. So the contract cost is $75,000 a year.
Okay. And one of the biggest problems that we heard from Steve too, is just being able to train these employees, especially when they're going through the process, the hurdles that he had. You're coming against employees who don't know the process, to move his documents through. So, yeah, I think the important, I think it's worth it to move forward. Since we're on contracts right now, okay. Now we know that's like $75,000 a year, okay, and there was like 320,000 million. I wish $320,000 that was appropriated for the.
So it's been a reoccurring appropriation for the last, I believe, 4 years.
Okay.
With that, if I'm not mistaken, I know it's at least 3 years.
Okay.
But it was 350, 300, and then this past legislation, I believe it was another $300,000, and that's to keep the medical program operating. Okay. And that's including, I believe you guys had 2 or 3 staffers.
We did have staff up until a couple of months ago.
Sid
Everyone
left.
who's been staffing that program has left, so the only person left right now is our Special Projects Coordinator, Lauren Salcairo, who has been helping us with the CCBs as the director's representative, who is now also helping with the medical cannabis.
Is the funding that's been appropriated, the 300 and something every, couple years now, is that covering the summit? The funding covering the summit, or how are you using the funding to cover the summit?
We actually have not budgeted any money for the summit since the use of the facility is free, and we are we have all of our agency partners who are going to be a part of it, and Metric, who is already our contractor.
Okay, so I just wanted, since we're on contracts right now, on May 12th, 2022, at the Adult Use Cannabis Rules and Regs hearing that I attended, which Public Health attended, I asked what was the status on the contract the Department of Public Health Association was supposed to secure for professional services from consultants, Cannabis Public Policy Consulting, LLC, I believe is the name. So can you tell me what the status is on this?
I believe that contract has been completed, and Senator, that was before my time, so I don't know all of the details, but I know that, and also for Director Marie, we don't quite know the details for that, but we can get them for you, and we have not used them since then.
Have you hired them at all since? I mean, if you haven't used them, so that means what was this? So I'll need an update on status. Yeah.
Yes, we'll have to get back to you, but to my understanding, we do not currently have anyone on a consulting basis.
And never had.
We do.
We did have a consultant who gave us some recommendations for the rules and regs, but I'm not familiar with who they are. Okay. I don't know the details.
I'd like to know who that company is and what the cost was to that and what were they able to contribute. Okay, on that one. Any questions on that? Anyone here on this side? Okay, you doing okay over there, Frank? I mean, Ed? Ed, you're all good? Okay. Bert, you're good? Okay. Andrea, please.
I do have a question. I know this is maybe before your time relative to your current position, but at the time, Department of Public Health came in to the legislative hearing and provided a full testimony of changes that they were requesting, which was odd to everyone because, and I think it was just a matter of timing, because they were on the board. They were on the board and in the position to make these changes to the rules, but neglected to do so. I think it was just probably a matter of time when the consultant finally delivered a report. One of those recommendations, which I also urged Department of Public Health to do, I spoke to Dr. Kaneshiro myself, was that there were no potency caps in the rules. I emailed it, I requested for Public Health, I spoke to Senator Parkinson, I spoke to Vanessa Williams, urging that there were no potency caps per serving and no max serving sizes in the rules. I testified on that at the legislature, and that was like the #1 thing that Public Health came in with. So I guess my question is, for such an important thing, like protecting consumer safety, protecting accidental ingestion by children, that's mainly what these potency caps do. Why has nobody moved on that? It seems to me like a really big deal for a consultant to suggest that it needed to be done. Granted, if you didn't want to listen to me, that's fine. Who am I? I'm a nobody here. But when a consultant that you're paying is making the same recommendation, where did it go from there? Where does it go after this testimony? Like, does it just go in the dustbin of testimonies? Or like, that seems like a really big thing to want to protect children from accidental ingestion. Even if you don't have children, your pets, we know that there have been some issues with pets accidentally ingesting cannabis. And so if you have, a cookie with 300 milligrams of THC, that just seems a little ridiculous to me. But that is this is not new. This has been happening in the industry for 2+3 decades already. We already know these problems. And so I guess I'm just curious, where does the testimony go? Where does the recommendation go once the recommendation is made, if anybody can enlighten me on that?
Well, just to talk about the timing, yes, I believe you're correct, Andrea, regarding the time that we had the consultant and then the rules being introduced and that those recommendations coming up. And so Public Health introduced those recommendations as testimony and not as, work done within the board on the rules and regs. But I think as Director Marie answered to several other questions, that's something we can bring back to the board. And that's not something, we've discussed since we've been representatives on the board, but something that we can certainly bring back to discuss again.
Okay. John, do you want to add something?
Yes, I believe that when you look at your potency limits, and I know that Andrea and I have spoke about this, is you got to make sure that there's a differentiation between medical patients, because there are requirements. And I know I just stepped out to check something, but I know he can speak on the differentiate when the medical patients, because there's a higher need sometimes. There's a higher need for higher potency limits for medical patients. And this is why the medical program is still very much relevant, because when we look at medical patients, especially going through terminal illnesses, they're going to need higher potencies. Instead of eating a whole 10-pack of gummies at 10 milligrams a piece, they're going to need 100 milligrams one-time shot. And this is where we get into things like Rick Simpson oil. And I'm not going to get into the minutia of all the different products that we can get into, but that's something that I believe was neglected when we looked at putting all this together.
Correct. There should be no caps on medical cannabis.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to ask any of the industry. Well, I think we covered most of the questions that I asked first, and I have them all here. Their answers and responses, I appreciate. I'm still waiting on some of the other regulatory agencies like Waterworks. I'd really like to hear from them. Guam Power Authority. But at this time, we'll continue on with what we need to do as a legislature. And of course, with Rev and Tax and the council, the commission that oversees this, really, we've got a lot to go through here. So everything from the website update to, the monthly meetings, happening, and the appointees especially, to bring in the appointees in. The designees, if you have one, especially if you're not able to make it, it's so important for consistency too. So, you're not schooling that individual again the second time. So sometimes it's good if you're going to show up, that your designee is also there too. The both of you are there. So you understand what's going on in case somebody is not there. The summit, again, Deputy Director, can you please, again, bring that out?
Yes, the summit will be held on January 29th at the Sinahanya Community Arts Facility. I don't know if that's the correct name, but where the mayor's office is.
Right. And that's at 8:30?
8:30.
8:30 a.m., okay. And then, of course, we're going to be reaching out to Customs, just to find out what they do on their perspective. Rev and Tax acknowledged the oversight of hemp products, the importance of it, and the regulatory side. Not only that, but the inspection side is very important. We talked about, looking at mom and pop stores and gas stations that really, everywhere selling it, and we want to see if we can find a way that we can monitor it with more efficiency, by maybe even placing it in just, go ahead.
I don't know if I think everyone would kind of welcome this, but what I think this should evolve into that I really welcome and would look forward to is if we could have a working session with the same individuals here who have the insight to offer, because I know that at the time that we were trying to come up with the rules and regs from our different agencies, I mean, we each had our own responsible section, our responsible component, but we were learning at the same time that we had to promulgate these rules and regs. I mean, there was no time frame to adjust to the concept, because we came into office and then there was this bill. It garnered a huge amount of support, and then we wanted to see rules and regs. So we were all learning through that while we were in the process of developing it. And absolutely, obviously, there are components of it that need to be updated and revised. And I think a working session would be really helpful with that, where we could all sit together, because we were also promulgating our own sections and our own little agency silos, so
Exactly.
now seeing how everything is actually panning out, it would be really helpful if we just work together as a group to revise the rules and regs
Exactly.
in a working session.
Thank you so much for that, Chelsea. That's on the other side of my list to go down on. No, you're there, you're right there. And it's going to be very helpful, because when it comes to rules and regulations on the legislative side, we're not the ones that do that. It's the agencies. We've had a bill that was actually vetoed by the governor because one of us, decided to change the rules and regs in GAR, and that is an administrative function. What happens is the process allows it then to come to the legislature after you've gone through the AAA process, come to the legislature, and that's when we hear it. And that's when we have the opportunity as legislators to make amendments through a public hearing other people talk on it. So it's going to have extensive review, and I'd like to see it done sooner than later. I mean, because, it takes almost 3 months to do rules and regs, and then bring it to us. We have 70 days to go through it. And what I don't want to do is have a bill come in front of us on rules and regs, and it just lapses into law without any changes that are made. So, yep, that was on the agenda. Thank you so much, and I'm taking that recommendation. And let me just finish down my list, and then I will allow everyone to say their piece and what they would like to see happen moving forward and how you can contribute. And one of the main things you think that should happen, this is recorded, for a purpose, so you can revert back to this hearing, this roundtable. So I'll allow you to do that. So we have the summit, as mentioned, the customs meeting, of course, revenue tax on the hemp was the last word in. The matrix funding, we had it at 75. We just want to see the balance of how much money that's been appropriated. That money, who's it been appropriated every year to? Is it the CCB or is it public health, that we've been appropriating to? So we'll get a spreadsheet on what's been going on with that funding. Also, cannabis public policy consulting, please follow up with that one on the consulting. And of course, the work session that Chelsea brought up was an excellent idea. And at this time, I'd like to start on my right again, to go down the list for everybody to put your 2 cents in. This is an opportunity for us to hear you, and then we have your numbers and names and if there's anyone else out in the public, please, if you want to be a part of this, let me know. And give me your ideas and send it to Senator telot@gmail.com. We'll be glad to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Senator Gumatauta. If there's any comments or suggestions.
Yeah, I just, my only suggestion, Madam Chair, is that when we think about the board, we really got to get to the ground on the vacancies and to get it to us as soon as possible. And then with that said, to prioritize, I'll say it again to the 3 directors here, you have to prioritize. People have been waiting too darn long, and I think there's been appropriations given, there's an expectation. I get the learning curve that was happening at the very beginning, but we're now at the end of a second year of her term, and you guys have all had plenty of chances to learn, and now it's time to implement. And I think those guys who's like in Steve's case, been spending money, and people's confidence in the ability of our government to do this job. And I think it's key. You have staff that are working on this every day. They come to work, they work 8 to 5, you pay them. And these people on this end who have been relying on the government workers to do their part, they just need you to just take that extra step here. I mean, or if not, I guess we'll have to maybe change mandate. And or we just get rid of it. If we're not going to do it, why are we going to keep going around in circles? I say that with a lot of respect, because I respect the branch and what it's supposed to do. and we need to just do the job, and let's get it, get it going. If we're trying to cultivate an industry, well, this is not a great way to do it. I mean, if it's such a priority, let's make it work. I mean, you got my commitment to do it. I want to help where I can. It's my vote too, and I have a lot to say, and I think that would be help, right, to the community, to those advocates. They've been waiting long enough. And I know that, you guys are all resourceful people, and your staffs are really, really good at what they do. And they're here because they're here. But please, let's, after the summit's over, have the working session, get that, and I would love to know when it happens so that I can attend. And then, you know what, because at some point, we have budget coming up. Are we going to keep budgeting for this or not? If it's not a priority, then let's do something else. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Ms. Duenas. Mrs. Duenas, please.
So Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center is not necessarily part of the regulatory part, but we do want to also emphasize the altered perception that this whole legalization of marijuana is hitting our youth. And we want to make sure that we also put out some prevention information. And it's just one of our, in treatment, that's where we're seeing an increase, is the youth looking at marijuana as legal for them. And if, there's an idea on the table in terms of looking at our Tobacco Act and maybe looking into that and trying to make amendments there where we can add some THC cannabis products, just to promote the regulatory consistency to allow agencies to capitalize on the system. But you know how we have the Tobacco Act? If we just add some, the marijuana products into that, that might be helpful. This is where we're looking at it, and we're always looking at the prevention part of everything, so.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Duenas. I appreciate you being here today. Valerie?
I think a working session would be great, especially working with the other agencies regarding the clearances. As of now, the procedure, once Mr. Roberto finishes his clearances for the KEL, he would have to get clearances again for the permit to operate. So that would be good to work with other agencies to see if maybe we can extend the clearances to a certain time, or if there's an expiration date on it, because he's going to flow right into the permit to operate and then finalize into the ending where he can get his license. So I think the working session would be really important for us to have, especially because we all have working parts in the industry and in the act.
Okay, thank you, Valerie. Okay, Mika? Miko, right?
Mako.
Okay.
So I agree with my colleague. The working session would actually really help so that we can understand the different agencies and their requirement, so it doesn't be repetitive. We're not going to ask the same thing from the same agencies, So Mr. Roberto actually reached out to me a few times, stressing his concerns with the clearances and stuff, and I tried my best to guide him, but I'm not able to guide him the right way if I don't know what the other agency is requiring. I don't know, I can't help him. So understanding what the requirements will help out a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Maria?
Hi, I'm just going to kind of reiterate what Ms. Duenas and Mr. Roberto have said. I've always been a proponent of educational campaigns. And I think if, we can go ahead and concentrate on that and just kind of put out there, I know that our agency, we are primarily responsible for the administrative part with regard to board responsibilities. And I think that, I will say this, that we can certainly commit to kind of reinforcing any educational information, out there to the public. I do like Director Chelsea's idea with regard to, a working group, because as Mako mentioned, sometimes we just need to get a better understanding of the other agencies that are involved. And perhaps when we do have a working group, I think it'll be a little more, we'd probably be a little more sympathetic, if you will, to maybe any challenges, or perhaps have a better understanding of challenges that may arise. As Deputy Director Amanda mentioned, some of us may not have been part of this since its inception. But with that said, we are the current members of the board, and we will commit to making some of the changes, that have come up as part of this discussion.
Thank you, Marie. Amanda?
Yes, so public health and social services and DRT, we are not the lone and sole regulators, right? Everyone here at the table with agriculture and the utilities who are a part of this and land management. So, everyone has these concerns, but it takes all of us, all of the different departments and agencies to be able to come together. And so that idea of a working group, our upcoming summit, all of these things will help us to better serve the public and better serve the industry stakeholders so that we can really support them to be able to finally open. And so we stand ready to do that, and we're here for any questions that you have, and appreciate your time to put this together.
Okay. Thank you, Amanda. Jerry?
As I said earlier, I'm not part of the industry, but having said that, I think, from my understanding, one of the major impediments for cannabis to move forward is the amount of testing that is required and the depth of the testing to do locally here. And, it's just an impediment for, even a company that's professionally in that kind of research business and has equipment. So
Okay.
I think it needs to be reviewed.
Yes, I think so too. That's one of the major ones. Chelsea?
I am thankful for the roundtable. It turned out way better than I thought. And I'm glad to have heard all of the input. I mean, when we interact with different individuals, it's only relative to what our issue or their concern is with us. So like when I talk to Mr. Roberto, it's about growing stuff. It's not, so getting to hear everyone else's experiences and how, even as horrific as they were, and how we all need to intersect and interact a lot more. That was really illuminating, or, I feel enlightened by that. And I really look forward to a working session, and wanted to ask, since Andrea is one of our resident experts and she's working under your office, if we could ask her, and she knows everybody involved, to help coordinate the working session so that we're not just saying we want to have it and then no one ever schedules it.
Absolutely, Chelsea. I'm sure she will, even if I have to double her her timeline for this. Bert, do you have anything, or say a few words, please?
Yes, I believe the working session might work out a lot better in regards to all the agencies being on the same page. Back a few years ago, I did have a couple of agencies visit our facility. We no longer have it anymore due to nothing happening. So the most common thing that was being said was, you got to help us look for what we need to look for, because all the agencies don't really know cannabis. We can't assume that everybody knows how to use cannabis or what cannabis benefits, So I think having the working sessions might really help out.
Very good. Steve?
Just want to thank everyone for coming in today and getting this done, because it creates traction on an industry that's had no traction. And I think I'm in very much agreement to the work group and the work and getting the message out as to what we need to get done, because right now it's just regulatory paralysis. And I think more than anything, this type of activity creates more regulatory certainty. And our people want it, they deserve it. So if we can continue to do this, my group is closer than ever. I'd like to see the finish line.
Absolutely. I like that regulatory paralysis comment that was made. Thank you, Steve. John?
So first and foremost, I want to thank you, Senator Taitague, Senator Gumatato, Senator Bree, Senator Cabo, for being here and sitting with us. I do appreciate the agencies for being here, the agency heads, Chelsea, former Senator Amanda. Thank you guys for all being here, because at the end of the day, we need to get this industry started. My main thing is one of the biggest agencies who have been an impediment for a lot of people along the way chose not to show up, and that was the Guam Environmental Protection Agency. They have their own rules and regulations when it comes to trying to tell the farmers how to operate. And I know that Department of Agriculture, and we're going to hash this out in just a second, but Department of Agriculture pushed an a full organic program. And those are things that are going to be impediments in the industry. And the reality is this industry is, I don't want to have to come here another day and then have to argue this point. The organic thing was brought up, the regulatory issues that EPA was there, and I'll sit if Andrea gives me a call. I'm there to help you guys. I've made this very clear for almost a decade, and I appreciate the time and opportunity.
Thank you so much, John, for your insight too as well. And Ed?
I'd like to thank everybody that's here. I'd like to thank the senators that are here, actually, and everybody at this table. I've been here since the conception of the KC Conception Act. I've been here at the beginning. I've helped Senator Tina Muñoz Barnes from the beginning, and my priority is on the medical side. I'm patient-focused. I felt that was a need, and that was my calling, and that's where I'm focused. Recreation is just a bypart of the necessity. One cannot function without the other. Recreation is needed because the amount of medical patients is so minute, minimal, but their importance is just as great. The things that are being spoken today are good, but it's just words that I've heard time and time again. I'd really like to see progress in this lifetime that would be effective for not just the medical patients, but for the island of Guam. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Senator Mentanani here, recognized.
Thank you, Senator Taitague, for holding this roundtable meeting. And in regards to working groups, I also want to thank the members of the working group that our team has actually been working with to find ways to finally move the cannabis industry forward. And so currently we have legislation that is being routed for co-sponsorship from my colleagues that we plan on introducing today that I hope will remove some of the major roadblocks that has been preventing this industry from moving forward. And I really do hope that my colleagues that are watching that aren't here today will get on board and support it. So thank you. And when you hold these working groups, I hope to be included. Thank you.
Absolutely. Andrea, save the best for last.
Thank you.
Since now you have to do the working group thing.
Right, which I've always been willing to do, so thank you. But Senator Telo, I did want to thank you for the opportunity to do this, because the ongoing joke as a former legislative employee and now, again, a legislative employee in my head is cannabis oversight. Anyways, you all get that, right? That's kind of a joke, but a roundtable is perfect. So I thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to the directors and Deputy Director Shelton for being here. I do want to recognize Director Chelsea, because she literally was the only one on the CCB board, the CCB, that really invited stakeholder participation to have some say into the rules that she was developing, particularly the lab. So thank you, Director Chelsea, for inviting us to be a part of that. I did want to just make a couple of comments and or questions for the record. There is a law on the books, and I remember this, it was Senator Estevez's law, that requires government agencies to post SOPs on their website. So I'm wondering if the bureaucratic hurdles that we're witnessing by the applicants, would some of it be resolved if the clear agencies that you have to clear, put their SOPs on some place where business applicants can access it and prepare it before they get there. So that's one of the questions that I had. My second question was, if the legislature has no authority over the GAR, as was mentioned earlier, who will hold the working session? And ultimately, I guess, if, Senator Telo's office wanted to host the working session, but ultimately, whose hands would that report or whatever at the end of the working session end up with, and whose action would it be at that point? That would be my next question.
Let's go ahead and answer that.
Okay. So I was thinking that we would have the working session together to revise the rules and regs, and then push it to the commission to
CCCB
to hold the public hearing for
Yeah.
it, and then pass it on to the legislature.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right, and I think that it would then go to my committee as the person with oversight over cannabis.
It would go over to the regulatory side, which is, no, it'd have to, so what the process would be, because it's GAR, and it would go to an agency or a commission, and the commission is under Rev and Tax, and Rev and Tax is regulatory, so then it would go under my committee next. Yeah, okay.
Because it's under DRT.
Right, and then because it's under Rev and Tax.
Right,
Yeah,
DRT.
yeah. Okay, and what was the first question you had, though?
The SOP law. So if I'm going to EPA, right, and we're talking about Steve's 3-year and ongoing process, right? If that SOP was on the website with regard to what do I need to clear Guam EPA, would that have helped you? 1000%. So if we can maybe comply with that law.
1000%.
Thank you.
I think what we have done already as a board, and DRT has posted it on the website, is providing a checklist of everything that you need to do. Of course, the checklist is not as informative as it could be to tell you every SOP, but it gives you a little bit of a roadmap. So having those SOPs for each agency would definitely be helpful.
Okay, so we'll start working on that right now, actually. We don't need the working group to get those agencies to start working on their SOPs, okay? Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I'll wait for Andre to finish.
Okay. I just had 2 more items that I wanted to point out. In the current rules, and I was trying to locate it, but it was just on my phone, and I'm blind at this point. I can't read on my phone anymore, but there was a provision, maybe you guys can recall, where the CCB tried to assert authority over the medical cannabis program. Do you remember that?
Yes, they did. But in the enabling law, all the medical rules from Public Law 33-2220, 220, 34-125, 34-165 were all excluded. Were all excluded in the enabling law for the Cannabis Control Board. So the recreational and the Cannabis Control Board has no jurisdiction over the medical cannabis program. The sole jurisdiction of the medical cannabis program comes out of Department of Public Health. That's why I'm upset that we used the public health money that was appropriated to stand up the rec program. The enabling law that pushed medical program forward, that money was allocated for medical to move the medical program forward, and nothing in the recreational program could have overseen that, because in 30, I believe it's in Clint's original law that stood up that legalized adult use cannabis, all the medical programs were exempted. So if we gave money to public health to stand up the medical program, then none of that, it might, at least from a patient standpoint, why did we take that money and use it for rec?
Right, but it was in GAR. It wasn't in statute. So this is part of the rules that lapsed into law. I don't believe that the CCB has any authority, so I just wanted to put that on the record as something to look out for as we develop rules. I don't think we could put in GAR under the CCB that for a medical lab, or for medical cannabis cultivation or whatever. I don't think we can do that. Practically, I think we all want to see just one program because it makes sense, it's simpler, I agree 100% that, but legally, it cannot happen at this moment. Like even the discussion of co-locating, like if a business wanted to do medical and adult use, only one is protected federally, right? So practically, yes, we all want to see that happen. We all want to see a place where we are, where this is just a regular regulated business like alcohol and tobacco, like Ray Gibson is always saying on the radio, but we're not there today. I want to get there, maybe one day. I want to get it off the streets like, behavioral health is saying. If you're seeing an increase in cannabis, it's not because cannabis is legal, it's because it's on the black market and that's where they're getting it. And so I just wanted to put that on the record. Yes, questioning what authority the CCB has over medical and clarifying that. The last one is there's a law firm that has done business with the government of Guam. They assisted Senator Tina Muñoz Barnes, they assisted Senator Dennis Rodriguez, and they assisted Governor Eddie Calvo. They are a fantastic law firm. I've recommended them to the CCB that before the rules come to the legislature, just give it to them and have them do a red line. I don't know why that never happened, so I'm gonna put that on the record. They're Vicente. They used to be Vicente Cedarburg. And if any of the agencies were willing to pony up the cash to do it, I really do recommend it. It's the easiest thing to do. We could sit here for hours. These people know cannabis law through and through. It just seems like the simplest thing to do that we should have done 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever it was. I can't remember anymore, but just look them up. Sean Hauser was your lawyer, I believe. She's a fantastic woman, very knowledgeable. She's going around now lecturing the country about what Schedule 3 means. That's how qualified these people are. And so please do reach out to them. They've assisted the government of Guam before. So that's the last thing I had for the record. Thank you, Senator, for the opportunity.
Chairwoman, if I may, the question on the CCB having any oversight of the medicinal cannabis program, that's not the case. It is at the Department of Public Health. We are the sole regulators of the medicinal cannabis program. And I know that John has a concern of that money that has been appropriated to our department being used to stand up the recreational component of the cannabis program. And as you said, there are two separate programs. It has not been used for the recreational cannabis program, but it has been used to pay for the metric contract, which we are now sharing with the recreational program. And that program is going to be used by both of us, and we would be paying that contract regardless of the recreational cannabis program existing. So we're paying for it for medicinal use, but we can use it for the recreational use as well.
And I look at the two of you and I see that, merging both of them together might be more, cost efficient, number one, and there's not running to one other place to figure out what you guys decided and what another group has decided. Coming together makes it so much more, cohesive to work together. Yes. So, I think that's something that we can look in the working group and talk about.
And for the rest of the financials, what's been appropriated to us from medicinal cannabis, we'll provide that to the committee. Yes, so that, John, you can see that too, what the money has been used for.
Yep, that's going to be very helpful. So,
simply put, and the only reason why I say this is because the release wasn't out of public health. The release was out of the Cannabis Control Board, and not once when the Cannabis Control Board talked about the procurement of metric was the medical program discussed. That's what's upsetting to me, is when it was released, nobody cared to say about this is being procured by the medical from public health. It was procured by the Cannabis Control Board, and to me, if the rules and regulations and the laws that are in place, and I do understand where you're coming from, Senator, it should be cross-utilized. But if we're not going to take care of the patients and at least help promote that program, then that's where I have an issue.
Yes, we certainly acknowledge that, and I apologize for that, what was done in the past, that wasn't acknowledged from the public health side, that was medicinal cannabis money appropriated for that program.
Right. I appreciate what John's saying also. That this money was sitting there, there was a lot for public health to do, and I know Senator Shelton, it was before your time, but there was so much prioritization of getting this seed to sale program for the adult use program, but there was no effort to fix anything that was happening in the medical side. And I think that's John's frustration as a patient, and that's my frustration as a licensee. There was no push for us to get to the finish line, but there was so much push to get a seed to sale program for the adult use cannabis. So I totally get it. But just to clarify what my concern was, in the rules and regs, the CCB asserts one of the agencies or their own authority to regulate something in the medical cannabis program. That word, either medicinal or medical, I'll look it up and send it via email to Senator Telo's office for the record. But that's concerning. Like, the CCB has no authority to regulate any medical cannabis farmer, any medical cannabis manufacturer or laboratory or anything. They're all separate. And so we could just take a look at that, and any potential legislation that's coming out, you can't just, for medical and, adult use, they're two separate programs. So just wanted, because of the statutory authority, yeah.
Steve, go ahead.
Just one last thing.
Sure.
As the conversation kind of turned towards changing of rules and regulations, I hope that the legislature will take into account that the early attemptees to get this done be given consideration in terms of, please don't change the rules and regs to something that's of a lesser degree than what I've had to go through, because I've gone through a lot. And if you're I'll give an example. If you have to have a property developer come in and want to build a 400-room hotel on Guam, and the rules and regulations call for 1 through 10, and they need 1 through 10, well, the next guy that comes in, he's got to do 1 through 10 too. Please don't change it so that it's not, I'm all for moving the industry forward and anything that helps safety, compliance, regulatory oversight, all of that, but make it fair and in good faith. That's all I ask. Yeah,
and I think, Steve, to your comment, I don't think it has been fair, and that's why we want to change it, to some of the regulations that should not have been there. It's just too constringent, especially for a small island like Guam. And that's what we're hoping to do and just work out. And if we do change that, it's because, unfortunately, those who had to go through it should not have had to go through what you did. So, but we're definitely going to make sure you're part of this working group, okay, as well. Okay, that being said, again, I thank you, everyone who's here today. And this is not a round table or a hearing where we're just going to say our 2 cents and walk away and do nothing. If anybody knows me, I'm the person that calls you 10 times, ask Maria, until you answer your phone, until you give me the answer. I will continue to work on this. I've always been known for that, so please excuse me if I constantly call you. You better answer the first time, because you're going to get 10 more after that, if you don't. Ask Marie. Ask anybody. So in closing, I again greatly appreciate everybody's comments today and this roundtable. We have identified key barriers and emphasized the importance of strong safety regulations. Moving forward, we may convene the follow-up, of course, in a form of a workshop together, a working group, and begin preparing legislation to address these concerns if we need to directly. I'm hoping that rules and regulations come out, as we move forward too on this next meeting that we have planned, and share our goals is very clear today. I think we are all on the same boat here, fair, transparent, sustainable opportunities for consumers, retailers, and business owners alike, while building a framework that supports growth and responsibility across the industry. Thank you all for participating. This roundtable is now concluded. It's 11:15. We did pretty good. Doesn't mean it ended, though. We got a lot more work ahead. Create a great evening. Thank you. Or afternoon.